Welcome once again. Just before this session, we talked about how emerging trends are getting associated with the modes of communication. I will be slightly more elaborative in that particular term, but try and bear with me for a while. And once you patiently come along, you would realize that there is a huge fragmentation geographically also. I would not take you into the statistics of internet penetration or mobile penetration or those kind of things. Basically that is very commonly understood, and I personally do not prefer to go for putting up statistics and then elaborating on that mode, because the purpose of this subject is to draw your attention towards the power of integrated marketing communication rather than sailing you through some numbers. So, now try and look at this, the network connectivity, reach of those networks, enablement of people in terms of the facilitation those networks are extending in terms of flow of information or message or whatsoever is definitely there, and it is increasing. And perceivably we can say that people are more connected at this moment. But if you will geographically analyze that, for example, you go to Himalayas, it's my preferred example because I am staying at the foothills of Himalayas. Roorkee is somewhere very near to the hills, and we are in Uttaranchal, Uttarakhand. So, and this is a hill state. So, you go there, just 150 kilometers, people are using internet, but they are more into newspaper based news, slightly equally into television based news also, and then discussion forums or people talking to each other on different kinds of issues is much higher as compared to where we are. And then you move towards the western direction slightly, or I may be slightly wrong in terms of exact direction. Then you move towards the urban areas in the plains, or much urban, larger, bigger cities in the plains, and you would realize the context, or I should say the usage of different modes amongst people with different kind of an intensity. The message is very clear that complementarity of modes is highly differentiable in different kinds of areas. I have travelled through this country from north to south and east to west, and I can say with conformity that there is some common element in larger cities as far as the understanding and understanding of people and behavior of people in terms of using different kinds of modes of communication, or are marketers reaching to those people on the basis of that kind of a particular usage and behavior. But even if you want to divide it into urban and rural and semi-urban and those kind of phases, you would find a difference, and then you would find finer differences almost in all contexts of north, east, west, south, and wherein there would be very specific behavioral pattern amongst the customers or amongst the people. What we are getting at, newspaper reaches almost everywhere, television reaches almost everywhere, networks are available to everyone, but preferences of those modes amongst people is differentiable clearly. What is the evidence to that? The prime evidence to that is that marketer recognizes that on the basis of the response level they are generating from different pockets of the country. Not only response level, a continued longitudinal marketing research which marketers keep on doing in terms of when they take their products along or services along, the the response level, the flow level, the interaction level tells them that which mode is being used by the customer more actually. And when we are talking of emerging trends are related to this changing complementarity basically, the changing pattern of combination of different modes used by different kinds of people. Let me elaborate this a bit more actually, and that would be that should be done with reference to different age groups. Go to a very big city, visit a school, talk to a child, and you will exactly know what I intend to say. That child will be very specific in telling you about the source of his information in usual terms apart from his books and teachers, for example mobile phones or very specific internet websites and so on. Those might be because of some reference or something, whatever, or those might be the trend of the place actually, or that might have some parental influence or school influence or whichever way you want to look at it. But try and talk to the same age group in a different city, slightly smaller, and you will exactly know what we are talking about. Same you can talk to, let us say, a college going student. You go to I am standing in IIT Roorkee for example, and there are several other IITs all around, and believe me, students come here from different parts of the country, but when they come here, this cultural influence of this place and this institution actually encompasses them or takes them into its own stride, and they become part of this place actually. And then though they are IITians, they are intelligent students, they are mostly science students, they know the nitty-gritties of all the modes, they definitely are much deeper into internet and its usage. But then once you go to a different institution somewhere of similar caliber and similar status, you would slightly there would be a difference in as far as the mode of communication goes. This might not be so deeply observable, but then you change the institution entirely. You go to a local institution wherein mostly the regional students they come, and then you will find a complete difference basically. You see, why am I refraining from categorizing that difference is because that is for you to observe. My particular job right now is to introduce this kind of a trend factor in front of you, that how it traverses. You talk to a homemaker for example, a metro city homemaker has a different kind of a usage of as far as the mode goes, and even if she is using mobile phone very frequently, then also which kinds of sites or which kinds of prompts she is using would be different than a small city homemaker actually. There are several cultural influences, there are behavioral aspects which we will be talking about, but at that moment we would be understanding these things with how behavior is shaped. There I would again refer to some geographical element, but here the trend emerges from geographical differentiation and trend actually influences that thing also. But this is how you must be looking at as far as the changing trend by modes when I say, and that is the reason wherein I should say that the readership of newspaper has increased in due course of time. When internet was becoming very prominent and in transition television became prominent, people used to discuss that somehow newspapers would recede dramatically. But this is for you to decide that Is it so? I do not think so. Number of hoardings, have they reduced? I wonder. In the meanwhile, FM has come. On the other side, how many channels do we have now? Have they reduced? Have you watched any channel vanishing from the scene basically? How many programs have they reduced? Everything is increasing. Every mode is becoming prominent in its own terms. Every newspaper, every channel, every internet site, they are increasing their space and reaching. So, are they reaching to the same customer? Probably there would be an overlap, yes, a very large overlap. But that overlap basically wherein that combination keeps on changing. But beyond that particular overlap, you draw a circle of a television here, a newspaper here, and then internet here, and then there would definitely be an overlap amongst the three, for example, if you go by that. But where they are not overlapping, that means their prominence is increasing in the eyes of a separate kind of a customer. And this is evident. This is evident how? What kind of a news is being released in that non-overlap areas or those modes? What people are liking about? I feel that within past 4, 5, 6 years, very prominent news channels have come in, and this is an area which actually is pushing itself very hard on people's life. There were very specific news channels 5 years back, but today you have a huge choice. And what I have realized that there is a very specific changing pattern of watching the news amongst the elderly population, which is a very large target for news channels. I have realized people between the age of 50s to 60s, and again I would not take you through numbers, people age grouped between 50 and 60 watching contemporary newer channels as compared to earlier established news channels basically, because they want more crisp news, some exact thing basically, which might be slightly more critical, but because they have been contributing in the formation of this country throughout their lives, and they are in the brackets of 55, 65 kind of, wherein they have already contributed much, they want to know exactly what is happening around. So that is where newer channels to create a big space, they are more objective as far as their approach goes. I am not comparing older channels or newer channels, please do not take it that way. But again, the point is, my job here is to suggest that that thing basically influences the communication as such, and we are talking of marketing communication. So, another element is that in some cases it is becoming very pinpointed. For example, you are looking for a very specific kind of a job, and job portal reaches you exactly. How do they know? We have discussed that. And many a times they are reaching almost everyone, because many a times they understand that anyone could be included in the fray, or that product might have a prospective target in you, despite of the fact that you have not been watching such kind of tele-serial or something up till now, but that does not mean that you would not do that. So, you see, this is what we have been talking of largely. So, how TV, newspaper, internet, phone, and most of it phone now is actually becoming prominent or complementarily prominent, and so on. And an important thing is that, as I said, volume is rising. Now, many times people discuss this very interestingly, that after a particular stage when mobile becomes more prominent and there are more added features as far as the mobile phone goes and the software goes, there are several kinds of apps which are coming up day in day out. Now, for at least once, television and newspaper and these kind of mass media, or let us say we cannot call them mass media as compared to mobile phone now, but these kind of media would be receding but I personally doubt it. You see, the purpose of evolvement or the purpose of how these modes would evolve in due course of time with reference to a marketer's choice would start getting differentiated more, that is for sure, but they would recede, it would not happen. And one more thing which I want to add to emphasize upon here is that we should not be forgetting about magazines, for example. Have they vanished? No, we still have those. People are spending lots of time on magazines actually, and they are getting thicker and thicker also. You purchase any business magazine, because we are talking about integrated marketing communication, so I would be referring to business magazines, they are getting thicker and thicker. They are getting lots of elaborative narratives and story now, and people are spending lots of time in reading that basically. Can you read a magazine in 10-15 days altogether? Might not. Even if you spend half an hour daily on a magazine, you might not be able to finish it in next 10-15 days. People do possess that, people do read that, and they also run on basically their major revenue comes from advertising. So, that mode also is somehow getting prominent, although I have seen some of the magazines getting vanished away and so on. But and hoardings have become electronic in due course of time. So, that is also there, and FM I have talked about, and the other types of radio channels, have they vanished? No. So, fundamentally at this particular stage where we are reaching, that purpose of a reader with reference to seeking a particular kind of elaboration on one kind of an information, that might get differentiated, or there would be very specific things which would be addressed by one mode. For example, a local newspaper would be covering very specific news on that, which would not come from an authentic source otherwise, because internet might not be internet based modes might not be covering that at all. So, that definitely would be there. There would be very local news channels, as I said, you go to now you have city based news channels all through, and those are more relevant for those people basically. I have several projects running in Himalayan areas, and when I talk to the beneficiaries or my project partners and associates over there, so they always say that X thing has been covered by a channel which I do not know about, and they send me the clipping actually, and they, for them that is more important, because the locals, they get to know about what they are doing actually. So, this integration and combination definitely would come to a new phase, and let us see how it grows, let us see how it keeps on changing its form, it has yet to be seen. I would refrain from forecasting about this kind of a change in due course of time, because as a matter of research, it has several assumptions which might not be valid in due course of time. So, broadly there are several researches which have established the forms which modes would take, but specifically we do not have any specific answer to that. So, here we are, I will give you some examples. Recently I saw that newspapers like Dainik Jagran or some other newspapers also, they have come up with a very interesting program. For example, they come to a very specific city like Roorkee. Roorkee is a small town with a population of 3.5 or 4 lakhs, and I might be wrong here. They might go to Haridwar, for example, it is the adjacent city, and we all know about Haridwar. Haridwar, by the way, is only 25 kilometers from this place actually. So, now you see, although Haridwar is very prominent as compared to Roorkee, because people from all over the country, they come there. So, now Dainik Jagran, what they started was a very interesting thing. They went to local retailers and they said that, why do not you advertise with the newspaper? So, because print media is definitely not very cost effective for local retailers, because their profit margins are very specific, and then they have a very targeted kind of an audience, and then everyone knows them in the city. For example, I am talking of a very small city like Roorkee, so everyone knows a particular kind of a sweet shop, a particular kind of a grocery shop, everyone knows where it is and what it can offer. So, why should it advertise? But Dainik Jagran went to them and gave them a very specific reason to advertise. What was that? They created a complementarity of several modes at local level for them, while associating newspaper advertisements on specific days in specific shapes and sizes, highlighting specific elements of their offerings, along with putting the similar kind of a message by Jagran's own modes controlled by them, and then associating different kinds of other carriers for that kind of a particular advertisement. For example, the same shop would be having a place on a very small board which is hanging on an e-rickshaw while plying through the city actually. So, that would be within that cost space basically, they would not be charging extra, and that cost is very minimal if you look into the total package, few thousand rupees. So, a retailer finds it very cost effective, and he feels that within few thousand rupees he would be present all year round everywhere, despite of the fact he might not be getting a very huge advantage in terms of number of customers being raised because of that, but then the charm of being there in the sight of his customer, retaining that customer in this competitive world, and might be able to add 1 or 2% additional customers is a very attractive kind of a proposition. What Dainik Jagran is getting as far as this particular thing goes, they are cumulatively getting a large revenue, because here they are addressing large number of retailers. So, this is how personalized, localized advertising with presence in all the local modes is positively affecting almost every entrepreneur or enterprise, and that is again a very prominent trend which is evolving. I am not saying this is very unique to this particular example which I am suggesting here. There are other newspapers also which are doing the same kind of a thing. There are international newspapers which have been trying these things in their own countries. So, but this is again a very specific kind of a trend, and this might not be so easily noticeable by you and me sitting in different kinds of cities. We can talk about our own city, but you might not be knowing what is happening here. So, but this trend is evolving, there is a revenue associated with that, there is a customer response associated with that, and there is a customer retention associated with that. So, the point is that data is getting large, input volume is very high from the side of the marketer, customer choices are becoming very varied. Customer still is more hungry for more information, because customer wants to increase the span of his choices. He wants to look into hundreds of items and select one, and capitalizing on the moment is actually the call. Everyone wants to capitalize upon this moment, the marketer as well as the customer. And ladies and gentlemen, believe me, you can call it a communication war, which every marketer is fighting, and customer is participating in that war. I do not know, you may call this customer as a warrior, because customer is also fighting for that communication space, somehow looking into what he may get at best kind of. So, let us all enjoy this communication war and try to understand how IMC is facilitating this communication war for the benefit of all. That is all for now as far as this session goes, and I will be joining you in the next session with an element of design thinking, and should I say communication war? Design thinking and communication war, and we will know how design thinking and communication are associated with each other, and we will first try to analyze what design thinking actually is. Thank you. Bye for now. See you next time.